Hi, and welcome to Chain Reactions, a weekly live stream from Myosin.xyz, the leading global marketing network, and hosted by yours truly, Blake, and my co-host, Polina. Tune in each week as we jam on the latest happenings in the wild and wonderful world of Web3. We're live on onlonely.app every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Eastern, and release the pod every following week on Tuesdays. Now, let's talk Chain Reactions. Official, baby. It's official. All right. Well, I think we're live. So welcome everyone to our weekly live stream. I think today we're all over across many platforms. But for those of you who may not be aware, I'm Blake. This is our weekly live stream, Chain Reactions. We got Polina and James. I'll let them introduce themselves and let's dive into it. Yeah. But take it away.
Polina, please go ahead.
I mean, they know me, but I would love to introduce yourself, introduce Camp. Would love to get into it.
Yeah, happy to kick off with an intro. I'll keep it short. I'm sure there's a lot of questions and a lot of different directions that we can take this. But very quickly, my name is James. I'm the co-founder of Camp. My background is UC Berkeley School of Business. After graduating from Berkeley, I took the TradFi route. I spent about 4 years at Goldman Sachs working in their San Francisco tech investment banking team. Had the amazing opportunities to work alongside companies like Airbnb on consumer software with Palantir on the direct listing, as well as identity companies like Okta and Ping Identity. After Goldman, I wanted to get some operational experience beyond just, advising companies on these massive transactions. I wanted to understand how to build them myself. So landed a really amazing opportunity to join Figma as the second hire in the strategic finance team. Really love the product. That's a whole another hour conversation that we can go into, but a really amazing product, amazing community, amazing ethos around building disruptive technology and bringing that to the consumer and the masses. And over the last few years, building crypto across a few different opportunities that I can get into, but ultimately all things lead to Camp. Camp is a modular identity layer where we can bring off-chain data from Web2 platforms on-chain. And the real benefit is twofold. One is being able to help users own and monetize on their identities. And second is teams building on top of Camp can get access to, in our minds, data and identities that actually matter, which is identities across Web2 platforms. And being able to get access to this data can help teams build better app experiences as well as better go-to-market strategies. And in Web3 consumer app development, we really believe that identity is missing, and identity is the core for what we need to really see the next leg of growth in crypto and consumer adoption more broadly. So we're excited to be building Camp.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was such a good pitch. My next question was explain Camp like I'm five, but I feel like you did that already. Now, I would love to, I would like to know on a specific example, because I know you guys are working with a lot of products in the music industry and helping, artists with tech to figure out better ways to monetize and things like that. So I would love to, on a specific example, how does the tech that you're building helping make, solve the real problem?
It's a really great question. Everyone can talk about the value of identity, but the real value is how does an application unlock better app experiences using identity? And there's a few examples. For example, if you're a music on-chain company and you release different musics on the blockchain and all the royalties handled through smart contracts, say that you were building a techno music NFT. Instead of posting about it on Twitter, sending out an email blast, which we know is debatable in terms of ROI and customer acquisition costs, wouldn't it be more effective to leverage a database where you can say a filter by users who've streamed on Spotify for techno music in the last month, who spent this many dollars on the Shopify stores, who've subscribed to these techno artists on YouTube, who've attended these techno concerts in the last 6 months. Basically being able to, create go-to-market strategies around actual user data and actual user preferences can help companies like Music on Chain be able to drive higher ROI and really target users who actually care about the product. That's the first use case that I'll mention around more effective go-to-market strategies. And the second bucket I really like is really being able to personalize app experiences. So if I'm a fan of Korean K-pop, which I am today, if I'm a K-pop user and I open up a music app, I think, instead of opening an application where it shows the default list of music NFTs across all these different genres, it's more valuable to have a preferred section at the top of the music app that says, hey, based on your streaming interest, because you follow BTS and Blackpink on YouTube and you've done these actions and you follow these creators, we're suggesting a personalized app feed of music content that is catered to your interests, and we think you might be interested. And here it is at the top of your view. While that may not lead to, while they may not buy it, day one, at least the app starts to understand your user preferences and interests. And over time, I think that personalization and that helps drive retention in the user experience. I mean, the greatest and simplest analogy is if you open Instagram and I open Instagram, or maybe TikTok and TikTok, the app experiences are highly customized and highly personalized, and they're rooted upon user identity, user preferences, and data. And that app feedback cycle of understanding what you like, what your preferences are, what my humor is, do I like cooking, do I like interior design, that preference really shapes the app experience and keeps me continually engaged. And so that's where we get excited. It's to start to bring user identities from Web 2 platforms on chain. And by doing it on chain, we can create massive incentive alignment across not only our identity layer, but the teams building on top of our identity layer, as well as the users using those applications, where you see a feedback cycle that's defined as our identity layer brings data, teams building on top of us can get access to this data in a very verified and secure way. And then they can deliver better app experiences to users. More retention leads to better data, better app experiences. And we see that nice flywheel that we've seen create really massive outcomes in Web 2. And there's no reason why we can't see those massive, fruitful product development cycles happen in Web 3 as well. And we really believe that the focus on identity at the infrastructure level really helps us usher in that new wave of consumer disruption.
I'm speechless. I'm like collecting my thoughts. But
I know that wasn't for a 5-year-old, but hopefully that was a helpful, helpful walk. And why why we're excited.
Yeah, but like as soon as you mentioned TikTok, for me, it's just all of this conversation about privacy and things came up. And if we're talking about, mass adoption, like, apps, personalization within the apps that consumers in Web2 are familiar with, and they're not really familiar with blockchain and all of that. So if we're making the tech invisible, how do we ensure that, I feel what I'm trying to say is that the privacy question would remain a bit of a blocker for them. They would feel like they're selling their data when it's kind of like, it's an ecosystem that you give some, you get some, pretty much. So I'm sure there are a lot of kind of, challenges that you're dealing with in terms of communicating the value of the product, because you work both with the builders and the users, I assume. So where do you think is like you get the most, pushback?
Yeah, I think the first piece I wanted to touch on is like the concept of privacy. Now, are people worried about user privacy leaks? And that's why we get excited about bringing this data on chain, because we can use a combination of zk-TLS as well as trusted execution environments, where we can actually verify that the data is authentic from the user, and we can leverage secure environments to decrypt that data. So if I'm an application trying to access user data, they have to go through a series of smart contract access requests to get data, and the trusted execution environment will process that decryption and only pass the string of data that the team requests. And so in this environment, we can ensure that user privacy is maintained. Apps don't have access to all your data. Users get to choose and provision which type of data points they want. And ultimately that helps create better kind of guardrails around, I know exactly which teams are accessing which data points. And we can basically start to solve some of the massive user leaks that we've seen in Web 2 and in Web 3. To answer your question around pushback, I think ultimately at the end of the day, the question is, how can we bring identity on chain in a scalable way that helps teams actually use that data? The question is, can teams actually benefit from having this data, and who's going to use this data? So I think to answer that question is a fewfold. There's a B2B approach as well as a B2C approach. So the B2B approach, we're building our own Camp SDK where we can create our Camp ID, which is a wallet tied to your social accounts. And that Camp Hub SDK can live within developer applications. So if you're for example, if you're a user and you onboard onto a team building on Camp, you can use our Camp SDK where you can sign in, do the social sign-ins, and then use the developer experience as is. But in that B2B go-to-market, we can then begin to capitalize on the massive reach of not just us, but also of the developers that we're working with, amazing high-quality founders across the consumer landscape. We have over 30 exclusive teams today, despite being in testnet for only a few months. And I think that's a testament to the interest around the user identity layer and being able to unlock these new, novel app experiences. And then the second is a B2C approach. Instead of just saying, hey, come authenticate your socials, without leaking too much alpha, we're creating some fun go-to-market strategies and some consumer use cases around data as a, more of a proof of concept that says, hey, here's the data that we can pull together on your social platforms. And here's how we can output them in a fun and shareable and memeable and community oriented type of way that can get folks excited about the use cases of data. So, in those two go-to-market strategies, really begin to see a lot of adoption.
Can we bring this a little closer to home? Because I think this is really cool, but I want to talk about like what's being built, right? So like, could you give the world a couple examples of what are they building?
30
I want to
projects. Yeah. What are they doing?
Yeah. I think that, there's a ton. There's folks across the loyalty landscape, folks across the music, the entertainment. There's one team called All Access that's doing festival gamification. So leveraging our identity layer, they're able to reward off-chain behavior on social platforms and festivals as well, utilizing our kind of identity layer, saying, hey, stream this music on Spotify, engage with these creators on socials in exchange for RWEs or real world experiences. Sonu is another company that's building with us, and their music IP on-chain business.
Yeah, I've used them. Are you talking
Laura?
about
Laura's great. The music on chain.
That's amazing.
They're the use case that I was talking about earlier about can you customize the app experience? Can you customize the go-to-market strategy? There's a company called Verse that's basically doing TikTok meets the Idol. So in a very digestible format on mobile, can you start to vote for creators competing against each other? And they can leverage our identity layer to first better target creators for these competitions. If you're doing a competition on R&B, can you filter using our identity layer, similar artists, and begin onboarding creators that way, saying, hey, you might be interested in this based on your social following, based on the music genre you have on Spotify. So there's an onboarding creator benefit of using identity layer. And then there's also a sense of like governance and reputation as well. Our identity layer, at the end of the day, one of the main use cases is preventing botting. It's anti-Sybil, right? You can actually show this is who I am as a user with my actual social graphs and social interests. It's not something that you can just bot and create 15 accounts, go to this platform and start voting with your random accounts. It is beginning to understand who you are as a user at your core and your social interests. And so adding in that layer of like social reputation into governance and voting is very valuable, not only for music. The use cases there are pretty massive. So those are just like 3 examples that come top of mind, but there's a ton of folks around the creator space that, can really benefit from utilizing our data layer.
You mentioned like the 3 examples that you mentioned were around music, and I saw you talking about music a lot on X. So I was just wondering why there's such focus on music. Do you see that the implementation of the tech is such a no-brainer solution there that it's easier to target that?
It's a great question. Music is one of the many categories, but music makes a ton of sense because the history around like the music industry is that data is incredibly siloed across 10 different platforms. So if you're an artist, if you're a festival manager, data sits across Spotify, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Discord, ticketing companies that don't share the data. That's a whole another monopoly conversation around that. And so music teams especially are deprived of valuable data, but it doesn't end there. There's a lot of folks in the social space, whether you're building like predictions markets on streaming behavior. There's a lot of social gamification of these off-chain platforms rewarding with on-chain that span beyond just music. So I think if you think about the core value of what we're offering, it's helping you really understand who your users are and what their preferences are. There's obviously clear associations with gaming as well. If you're building a gaming platform, targeting folks who stream these specific creators on Twitch, who play Elden Ring or who stream Fortnite, and being able to target those users and say, hey, based on your streaming interests or who you're subscribed to, we can start to build better just go-to-market strategies around those user bases, which is in our minds better use of time. And so the value of identity is around go-to-market, rewarding off-chain, as well as building personalized app experiences. So any consumer team, I think, can really benefit from that.
When you're talking about, when you're talking about like social graphs, right? I'm curious about that because I'm thinking through almost like with Lens, right? Anything I do on any Lens client is just connected to all the others. Is it a similar type of experience of what you're talking about? Like if I use any camp app, that should be like it's the one account, I guess, to kind of rule them all, right? Or wallet, or how does that work? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good example because what we see in Web3, that's a super big problem, is the cold start problem. Yeah. If I'm a user, like the analogy, like Polina, when you asked, how do you explain this to a 5-year-old? The analogy is basically, if I go to a playground and I meet a lot of friends and I have such a great day building relationships and I know the toys that I like, the people that I like, all these inside jokes, you develop an identity in relationships and people know you and you know them. Imagine going to the tire swing the next day and you see the same group of friends and everyone is like, who are you? I have no idea who you are. And you're like, we just spent all this time together. You should know who I am and our inside jokes. And that need to just continually refresh your identities across different app experiences that don't communicate is really difficult for user onboarding. And I think that's one of the things that we can solve with our identity layer is creating that sense of continuity in terms of identity. So when you go to a new app and I connect my Camp ID, from day one, the app experience should be personalized. All my data is there, from my social data, even some of my previous on-chain data that can help curate a more personalized app experience. And that's what we need ultimately in this day, because if I have to keep resetting my identities, and if I open a Web3 app and you open a Web3 app, our feeds are probably largely the same. And I think that really inhibits sort of users from wanting to spend more time in consumer apps if no one knows who they are with each time. So I think that cold start problem is really something that a Camp ID can really solve.
Oh, yeah. And then building off of that, I'm curious about thinking through interoperability, right? Because can you kind of break down how you're thinking about, there are other blockchains and other ecosystems that are also tackling consumer. They may not quite have, the connections that you guys have in certain ways, but also everyone's got their advantages. So how are you guys thinking about that as well? Because there's just
it's honestly it's an amazing question because the landscape is so fragmented today. You see L1s, L2s, L5s, L6 in a few months. Maybe we'll see what happens. But very simply put, we don't view Camp as competitive necessarily to these other ecosystems. We actually view ourselves as truly the interop identity layer, and we view ourselves as being able to leverage our social data layer and plugging into ecosystems like Base. While we may be similar from a tech stack perspective, when you take a step back, we actually view ourselves as being able to power social data for their consumer teams. So can Base work with Camp ID to integrate natively into their dApps and can have the same developer experience, but at the end of the day can start to feed those social data, social graphs, being able to personalize the user experience. We're in conversations with a handful of ecosystems around these type of partnerships. And so some exciting announcements to come. So that is ultimately the bigger vision is not, just focusing on our ecosystem of teams and just doing social. It's can you become truly that interop identity layer that can power the entire,
It's exciting. So what I'm really hearing is everyone needs to go set up a Camp account, Camp ID, right?
We'll have some, we're putting out some really fun initiatives in the very near term. So look out for that. We'll begin to kind of push the concept of Camp ID. We're working with, folks like Privy, shout out Henry over there, but working with folks like this to create a really compelling onboarding experience and, also being able to bring that to the mass.
Well, speaking of that, about Camp ID itself, I feel like it's very definitive. The tone of voice of the brand is very different from what you see on the timeline. I found myself just sometimes going through the tweets to get some inspiration for the way that, things are said creatively or differently. Yep. And I would share my screen to show our listeners what am I talking about. So what I did here really, as per usual, kind of try to reverse engineer your guys' timeline and what you're focusing on. So I would love to get a bit of insider info into some of the ideas that I've seen pop up. We also discussed it with Blake about, I think, a month or two ago, just how the tone of voice evolved from what it initially was to what it is now.
I was a big fan of the Collect Your Nuts campaign. That was
it's here as well.
Gamified testnet is what we call it.
We call it the Nut campaign. So
exactly, gotta get your nuts. This is a really fun exercise because we haven't dissected our progression in narrative as succinctly as you did. So it's really refreshing to kind of see everything wow, that's what we used to post. Those are the normal banners we used to use. And now we're doing, off the wall memes and different content. So it's fun to see it all in a packaged Fig Gem.
Yeah, I see that you started to lean into more memes and stuff, but when you're talking about Camp, it's a lot of for example, an infographic like this makes it really easy for me to understand what are you building, and generally just the tone of voice, even the fact that you use smaller letters, not starting from the capital, the text is very easy to digest and skim through. The idea is really compelling, but it's delivered in a very straightforward and simple way, which makes it really easy to understand what camp is about. And the founder voice in yourself is I think really beneficial as well. I know you guys have a few team members that are active on X, and we are seeing more and more teams in Web3 apply that to their content. I think it's good. It will be a norm like going forward. So it's cool to see. This is the first time I've seen something like this on X, referring to this post where you just this one was very good. We can share, Blake, if you want to see this, but what the team basically did is you deep faked Andrew Tate, Kim Kardashian, and a bunch of other people to make a dialogue.
They love
between
the
them.
Camp value proposition. They are the Camp killers at the end of the day.
I mean,
just
genius.
I know. Hey, they love Camp. At the highest level, I think it's very interesting to see the progression of the design, because in the early days, we were doing a banner that just says, "Hey, Camp logo, partner logo. Here's some text." But over time, I think we really just focused on our community and the content that we're putting out and how it's received. Because at the end of the day, if you scroll through a Twitter for 30 seconds, like a new Twitter account, you can understand like the type of character and personality that lives behind the keyboard within a few seconds, right? Being able to see, hey, are they super memey? Are they doing like, shit posting? Are they doing, really long technical, narrative pieces? For us, over time, what we saw was the highest engagement is content that people can relate to. So this Minecraft video was unreal. It was so funny to me because, I'm a TikTok user as well, and seeing those videos of, half Minecraft, half audio, or like there's a cooking video and you're just listening to the audio, and being able to put that, really succinctly into like framing it around camp and its narrative, but also having like a fun, relatable side to it. We had a lot of founders, a lot of folks in our network ping us. They're like, who is your agency? Who is cooking up this amazing content for you? Because it's resonating so well. It's so funny. Like a 2-hour loop of my co-founder Nirav, shout out Nirav, just talking about our value prop is actually unreal. And so, at the end of the day, it's, it all comes down to hiring. Our team, people ask us, who's the agency you use? How big is your marketing team? And frankly, it's just two. We have a head of marketing, shout out Prez, and we have a content person, shout out Griffin. And those two alone have just the creative juices that we've sort of just said over time, like, you guys just cook. It's your kitchen, it's your shit.
Cooking at camp. Let's go.
Cooking at camp. I know. You guys understand, they're really close with like the community, and like really they take the time to understand the sentiment around post. Are people saying, wow, this is so funny? Or are people not engaging? When you see some of the engagement on our posts, it gets us really excited, because while we might not have the 500K following on Twitter, everything is super organic. We have the level of engagement that you would typically see from an account that has 4 to 5 times the following. And we are very proud of that, because the engagement percent, the conversion rate of engagement is extremely high. And that in the earlier days is so important, right? Yeah. It's important to show like you're actually listening to the community, what they like, and how to deliver really fun, memeable, like degen content. But at the end of the day, communicate something that is very legitimate. It's kind of balancing those two voices of fun, relatable versus, hey, we signed this massive partnership. We onboarded this massive ecosystem team disrupting consumer with 1 million app downloads, and they're building just on camp. Finding that right balance and striking that right tone is where we get really, really excited, because I think that tends to resonate well, especially with the demographic of users that we're targeting, which is around consumer.
Yeah.
And I think
go ahead.
Oh yeah, go ahead. No, I was just going to chime in and just say, like, and I think what's really interesting when I think about teams that are doing this type of thing really well, it's kind of like Barachain has their own thing in terms of like they have the memes, they have all these sticker packs, They have the bear memes. But I think what you guys have done, is like leaning into internet culture that's almost like Web 2, right? Like, I don't think same thing. Like, I think I saw on TikTok and Instagram, like that whole Minecraft and like the deep fakes.
I remember you posted, I remember you responded to it. You're like, it was amazing. This is genius.
Genius. And we need that. And like, but that's the type of, and it makes so much sense for you guys, because, Camp's whole value prop is not around, trading volumes per se, right? In the way that some of these other chains might be focused on. If you are going to be consumer crypto, right, and you're thinking about how you're integrating different social media apps, actually bringing those cultures and that type of internet culture over here, it feels fresh, right? And it feels different. So yeah, just big ups on that approach.
Appreciate it. That's exactly the way that we thought about it too, is we want people to enjoy reading our content. If you scroll through a Twitter and you're just seeing the same partnership banners, the same, bulleted text, you're like, cool, I can read through everything, but nothing is getting me out of my seat. It's actually amazing to hear about our community members like saying, when's the next post? What are you guys cooking up? What's going on in the minds of camp? And how are you going to deliver that value prop to Twitter and in something that's super engaging and super fun? And so when we announced our super chain announcement, we did a retro video with Batman and all these nostalgic cartoons. That was like it made me happy. I watched that video like 6 times just for the video itself because of all the nostalgia. And so I think it's just really a testament to our team and how thoughtful they've been around how can we cater to an audience around consumer, Web 2, Web 3. And at the end of the day, you just look, notifications are on. You're ready to digest the next meme. You want to see the next funny thing that Camp puts out, but also showcases a sense of legitimacy and traction in the business and executing on the narrative. So that's the fun balance that we've struck so far.
Just to show an example of like the typical partnership announcement or how it looked before, right? I mean, the engagement numbers are still high, but this is something that is every other brand puts out. I mean, obviously you have your own voice, but still there's no like this, there's no special Camp sauce in it. But then fast forward to now, like, when Grok came out, you just tweeted this, like, with announcing a partnership with Wallet Connect. And also,
all our devs look exactly like that, by the way. It's a shot at a camp offsite with the woods in the back. It's the exact picture.
But also every announcement is just so different, like here it's just fun, a way to use the product, the typical memes that you would think of, the memes with, Camp Pepe. My favorite one and the most unhinged one probably was this third web announcement. Who would have thought about the Mew in progress of...
I mean, Nier's got a great Mew. It's now at 102 degrees, so he's stepping in the right direction. But again, this type of content is fun. You're just reading it and you see the picture. You're like, what is this? I need to just read. And then you end up clicking through it and then watching the video just to see what it's about. And it's actually a great video. Nier does a phenomenal job communicating the value of Camp. But the hook is something that's so fun and refreshing. Yeah. And everyone in the comments and our team is, making these inside jokes. And I was proud of my comment when I said if he goes 15 degrees less, he'll be a cutie because he'll be a cute angle. Maybe. Hey,
I didn't put that.
I'm a math nerd at the end of the day. But no, I think that this is a fun exercise because we could see the transformative kind of approach to our marketing strategy. And I think if you look at some of these numbers, these are getting 2-3x the engagement that we did. Even on other, from the other posts. Even the other posts are great. I mean, they were talking about partnerships with some of the best in class, infrastructure partners, and that's nothing to discount. But in terms of who our community and who they are today and how they've shown us how they react to content, we spent every day thinking about, what works, what doesn't. And so far, I think we're in a good groove and we're having fun with it.
So in your team, you mentioned that there are 2 people who do marketing, right? But these ideas are so off the wall. I'm just curious if you just post it on Slack or in a group chat or something and be like, okay, now we need something fun. Show me the best memes that we can use here.
No, in the earlier days, it was a lot of hey, is this okay? When we hired our head of marketing, there's a balance of I'm thinking about this. We'd guide him. And then we'd see some banger memes, banger tweets and be like, wow, you are actually a genius. This is not, marketing is one of the hardest things to do in crypto, as you guys know, and really captivating a consumer interest, especially in a format where people are scrolling, at light speed, right? No one's spending more than 2 seconds consuming content on Twitter. So the ability to think about content and captivating interest in kind of this short form attention span content platform is so valuable. And over time, as we just saw the genius in him unfold, when he was like, hey, I'm thinking about this, here's a draft, and we'd be like, this is unreal. How did you even think of this? And that's just the beauty of how his like creative mind works. And now at this point, you know, we say, here's the apron, here's the utensils, like you cook, we will just be at the dinner table ready for whatever you have to cook. And I think that level of autonomy and like powering individuals on your team and helping them lean into their strengths is really what we've seen help generate, you know, massive outcomes and helping them discover their voice as well on this type of platform. And at the end of the day, like this is his baby, this is his brainchild, and you know, we're just very fortunate to have someone like him on the team.
I think it's very cool that he's given all the creative freedom he has. I'm curious to hear some, you know, insight about the gamified testnet, because this is something like, you know, from my experience and working with the clients, usually when they launch something like this, they want like, okay, we want to post every day about our testnet. We want to post, you know, who is on the leaderboard. We want to do community spotlights, all of that stuff. Yet, you know, here you are, your community is your number one priority. Obviously, you get a, you know, tech to build and developers to attract and, you know, all of that. You launch this fun gamified testnet, and then you only post about it, you know, just a few times. You announce it, you share your milestone, and you share that you launched a leaderboard. Like, no, there hasn't been a tweet since July 15th about the gamified testnet.
Our Discord, our Telegram is incredibly active around this.
Yeah.
People are getting their nuts every day. And that's just something that's funny and novel to us. But, you know, for us, we wanted to put out something fun, a way for them to interact with camp for like meaningfully for like the first time beyond just content. You know, can they complete this coin flip game? It's in our camp ecosystem hub. Everything is camp branded. Can they interact with us? And then can we begin to understand like who are the users actually interacting with us? There's a lot of folks talking about it, make memes every day about collecting nuts in our Telegram. We actually created one for like our like diehard campers is kind of how we call them. People who are not just people who follow us on Twitter, but people who post memes and post content, help us engage with stuff. They ask us about our lives, and it's a fun family. It's not just a one-side transaction. It's us getting to know each other. I've actually had the fortunate opportunity to reach out to, you know, the top, you know, 5 community members in the last month who are active on Telegram. And I said, hey, just wanted to shout out and say thank you for being a loyal community member. Like, here's my Calendly, let's catch up. And I've been able to catch up with a few of them. And it's just amazing just to bring people from all over the world, people that you would never interface with on like a normal basis or without camp. I don't know how I would meet someone in Oman or, you know, Bangladesh, right? So it's just that community and sense of aligning people with what we're building is what we're really excited by. And I think that the community is like one of the most important things for camp.
That's amazing, dude. I want to hear a bit more about well, also, by the way, I mean, there's an obvious when camp community offsite at camp. I mean, you guys are going to have to just keep leaning into it. And then you know,
I know, man. We were talking about it. We're like, dude, should we just do a camp, like offsite, do like a, you know, bring our computers, get like a little workstation. We'll have to find the right balance between camping and glamping, finding some good Wi-Fi. But no, that's
Starlink, man.
It's definitely something on the roadmap.
It's doable.
Exactly. Exactly. It's on the roadmap. It's on the tech roadmap is camping with the team.
For all the camp OGs, hold on to your nuts, and then you'll get to camp IRL with the team.
Exactly. Whoever has the most nuts can camp with
utility.
the team. Hey, we might have to rip that one.
Go for it, man. Yeah, there's so much.
I noticed like the campaign. There is a referral campaign going on. You don't really talk about it, but I noticed it as I was doing the research. And you guys built a whole like hub, which basically right now hosts what, you know, most would be familiar as a quest, so like a white label platform for a quest. So I'm curious to, I mean, now obviously it helps you drive the adoption, helps get more community members on board and things like that, but I'm curious if you have plans for turning this hub into something else. Like, you know, I know you're active Discord, Telegram and whatnot, but this feels like it could be something.
Yeah, no, it's a really insightful comment, because, In the early days, we wanted to create processes in which we can start to understand and also just reward early community members.
Yep.
And, we've been very lucky to have, great hires who have had massive experiences in building community to set up programs like this, where a user can interact with camp, show, if they're interested in the content in our in our social platforms. And as you can see with like the levelings on the side, you start off as a sprout, and then you can level up to ultimately like a camp counselor in line with our whole camping theme. And this is sort of like the V1 of just creating actions, creating visibility into our users. We've actually been able to capitalize on this, initiative around community building to actually understand like who are, potential moderators, who are people that we can bring more in-house for creating content, right? Creating a structure like this helped us actually bringing like camp folks to work with us. And I think that's an amazing funnel of someone who just goes to a Discord, shows their excitement. But at the end of the day, we see that, we recognize that. And shout out to our community leads for recognizing those users and then also being able to promote them into moderator roles and different opportunities to engage with camp beyond just like following us. So I think that's been an amazing initiative and something that's super fun because community, again, is one of the most important things for us. The V2 of this is being able to branch this beyond users and kind of see that in the application ecosystem. Can you start to build this fun ecosystem hub where users can navigate through the camp ID, right? That we talked about, like tying your socials to your wallet, and then can you start to engage with the different applications on camp in a very fun, exciting way with like a camp site UI. I won't give out too much, but in a really kind of
Give it
fun
out.
go-to-market strategy. No, we'll have to do chain episode 10, and then I'll give you the alpha then. But yeah, I think there's a lot of really fun things that our team is cooking to really, at the core, understand who our users are, how to reward applications built on camp, and how to really drive that narrative forward around identity becoming so pivotal for consumer apps and consumer adoption more broadly.
Sorry, I was muted. I just realized. Just thinking out loud, right? As we think about future of identity and social and consumer, I mean, it's funny, right? Like, I think, well, I mean, I guess I'll just ask straight up, like, are you guys thinking about almost like a Warpcast alternative or a camp version? Or basically what I'm getting at is like the actual social applications and the clients. It's such a hard thing, right? Because I think everyone kind of wants their own version, but then as you're talking about cold start problem, and then getting the distribution is really challenging. Even if you're like Warpcast, I just had a conversation with today, like awesome app, great team, but even then it's not quite. There's a reason we're streaming on Twitter right now. That's why we're all on Twitter. So or X. So curious how you're thinking about that or where that fits in all
no,
this.
it's a good question. I think where we think we can generate the highest ROI is going to market in those three kind of data approaches where it's like B2B or B2C. Yeah. We want Camp ID ultimately to be in the hands of the most number of users across every ecosystem. We want Camp to be the global ID that unifies, on-chain with social data. And the use cases is massive. It's however the company wants to utilize the social data to power better app experiences and personalization. So there's like multiple use cases, but at the end of the day, our goal is to get verified first-party authentic data around users and create the infrastructure that enables permissionless access to the data, streamlines the monetization of that data on the user side. Instead of giving users airdrop for authenticating their data, the more valuable incentive alignment is creating that revenue share at the sequencer level so that users are getting recurring monetization streams. And so that recurring kind of monetization versus one-time upfront short-term, in our mind, generates better incentive alignment, and how ultimately the teams use that is going to be really the unlock experience. And frankly, getting to just that data inside Camp's identity is the first piece of solving for all that.
It's exciting. It makes a lot of sense. And how you can tie it together with everyone else and really be that identity layer. Because I think it's so funny. Like, I feel like in just the past couple, Well, I guess I'm just thinking out loud, and it feels like it's early, but as you're saying, right, like community is everything, because I'm also thinking through, like, I think Base just announced they got their .base, right? And then I was just at Fest, and then now they got your .fwb, and then you got your .uni. So I think it's this, if I really take a look at the landscape, right, there's all these different kind of identity layers, but the one that's going to win is going to be the one that, number one, has the people that's actually using it, but then also like what's that utility. And I think being able to connect the off-chain data and actually kind of tie it all together feels to me like a pretty big competitive advantage, because as far as I'm aware, I don't think anyone else can really pull that off in the way that you guys are thinking about it today. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's
really good at memes, because memes are culture.
Yeah. And then the memes, don't forget.
Exactly.
We go nuts.
Exactly. In reverse order of importance. Yeah. I think for us, there's a lot of folks that are, positioning themselves as consumer ecosystems. But at the end of the day, I think, really what unlocks consumer is the identity. So we actually view ourselves like complementary to all these different ecosystems.
Right.
When people think about like identity as well, the conversation tends to steer towards Web3. People say, we're looking at on-chain data and we're going to build the best on-chain data economy. But at the end of the day, understanding, but in order to, if you're a consumer app and you're really trying to understand user preferences and cater to better experiences on the app level, understanding which NFTs you hold or which trading activity you have on DEX isn't going to paint the right picture. It's informative, and maybe over the next 10, 15 years, we'll see that eclipse between Web 2 and Web 3 identities shifting more in favor of the latter. But at least in the earliest days and for the next foreseeable future, social data is incredibly important. And so as we think about social data and then tying ourselves to these other interoperable ecosystems where we can power social data tied to their, .base or .fwb or these other ecosystems, then that starts to create compelling narratives around, social meets on-chain and packaging those identities as a cohesive unit to build better app experiences.
And here's a quick question following up on that and I don't, just excuse me if you kind of answered it, but I don't think we mentioned this yet, but there's a question in the back of my mind, which is, as you're thinking about connecting off-chain data and different social data and kind of bringing it all into one place, how are you guys, and I'm sure you've thought about this, so I'm just trying to understand, like, what's the kind of like existential risk of getting cut off from those data sources, right? Because I think at the end of the day, like, I'm sure, they're monetizing off that on their own, right?
Right.
So if they're going to let you vampire attack their data and bring it into the Web3 ecosystem, there needs to be some kind of partnership or relationship, or I don't know. So how are you guys dealing with that?
Yeah. So I think that's a great point. It's like the bottoms up versus the top down. Can you bottoms up build with the users and the developers? And the top down, can you establish partnerships with these larger corporations longer term? The latter is something that is going to take time. It's not going to be easy to convince these established social platforms to create partnerships and monetization, alignment, and stuff like that. But our goal is to start with the bottoms up funnel, right? Can we create this camp ID? Can we allow users to auth with us? That's one example. Can we allow our SDK to be plugged into teams' experiences natively? And then the third opportunity is creating actually our own Chrome extension so that we can, notarize activity on Web2 platforms passively. So if I'm a user downloading a Chrome extension, connecting a wallet, that creates a more scalable passive go-to-market for tracking that data and bringing it into our identity layer. And so through that three-pronged approach, in the earliest days, we think that can create meaningful scale. And, over time, then leaning into this interop identity layer is where we kind of see that, really taking off on sort of like the bottoms up approach.
I'm into it. Nice. Well, there we go. And then I guess now my brain's humming and thinking about like games and all that, and
Yeah,
I
think
there's dive deeper
just so many things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for all of the apps, and finally the application layer is gonna have some fun consumer apps to dive into and test out.
Yeah, our view is that, we've seen a lot of innovation in infrastructure, and consumers only at a place today because of where we've made progress in infrastructure around account abstraction, gasless minting, things that can enable better user experiences. Now we're at an inflection point where infrastructure for the more or less is ready. But we haven't seen meaningful app development cycles because of this cold start problem and understanding user identities. So when you think about those two tailwinds intersecting, that's when the camp logo with the fire pops up and the fire is raging, because we are excited about where we are in the industry and how we can really cater to the next generation of consumer apps. If we were pitching this idea 3 years ago, we'd be like, look, I have to do MetaMask, I have to import this wallet into this wallet, and I can't even buy crypto with my credit card. And that would be a completely different conversation. But I think where we are very excited is about the timing and the inflection point in the broader consumer space and the amazing conversations we've already had. This is not something that's, oh yeah, it would be great. We have to do some battle testing on the idea. We already have an amazing ecosystem that continues to grow every week, and folks that are just really excited to have better access to data so they can start to unlock better app experiences. And I think that will continue to converge in favor of Camp over time.
Yeah.
Bullish consumer. Yeah.
Yeah, same.
Bullish
I mean, as
consumer.
we're coming to an end, if you want to shout something out,
Before again, I have a quick question, which is, what are you, I guess, like most bullish on within consumer? And I know it might be a hard question depending, but like, between music, between gaming, because gaming got a lot of investment last year, and then there's been a mixed bag, let's put it that way. So what's your hot take on what you think the next big thing is gonna blow up?
Yeah, I think there's a distinction in my mind between a consumer app that leverages crypto backend and a crypto consumer app, right? Yeah. The former is like the Blackbirds of the world, where you have a very seamless UX, amazing founder-led team, and everything is one tap, makes sense to accrue loyalty with your favorite restaurants, and it's so simple. Users don't even know that it's backend, right? And a backend crypto, right? That it's built on Web3 Rails. And I think that is the most exciting part of consumer to me, because especially in Web3, because the more you can mask these Web3 Rails under the hood and deliver a seamless, Web2 experience that people don't even know that they're interacting with crypto, that's when you begin to branch out from the small world that is, MetaMask users, right? Or whatever, right? The EVM wallets. And you begin to expand into a massive purview of, can my mom, can my brother start to use these applications and onboard into crypto? And I think the identity layer is really something that'll expedite that, because understanding who you are across Web2 platforms to deliver a Web2 experience is pivotal. We need to address that cold start problem. We need these companies to begin unlocking hundreds of thousands of onboarding, right? Like that's where we're going to see the most growth, is not just Web3 companies trying to fork other consumer apps and try to cater to the same demographic of users. It's really working with companies, like the Blackbirds of the world, or like the Verses of the world, that are in our ecosystem that have millions of downloads. People love the product. People love the gamification, the competition, the social. But on the back end, being able to tuck away all those like Web3 Rails is what, in our mind, unlocks like the 12, not 12, that's too specific, the 10 to 100x, onboarding opportunity.
I love it. I think that's a great summary, and that's where we're probably gonna have to wrap it up. Yeah, that's where we're headed, and I love it. But Polina,
I'm excited.
Back to you. And oh, Polina, you muted.
Polina, I think you're muted.
I said I'm excited at the same time as James did, so I was like, jinx. Well, I think it's a really good spot to wrap it up, and thanks, James, for coming on the live stream / podcast of On-Chain Reactions.
Of course, thank you for having me. This is fun, and I'm excited. We have to do another one, or maybe a Spaces, another podcast where we can talk about some of the fun initiatives. I think there's a lot of fun things cooking on Campsite. We're cooking a Michelin star dinner, so we hope you can come.
Let's go. Let's get it. And then what's if people want to find you, they want to engage with the community, they want to participate, they want to go nuts, where should they go?
Yes, they want to go nuts, no pun intended. They can go to camp_L2 at Twitter. You can find me at JamesKCHI. Please DM me. My DMs are always open. Love to chat, love to catch up with anyone in the ecosystem, whether you're building on Camp, whether you're not. I think there's a lot of really fun partnership opportunities that we can jam on. So appreciate the time, guys. This is super fun, super helpful.
Always.
Awesome.
Thanks for coming on. Thank you to everyone for listening. And I'll see you in Korea, James. Yeah, we'll have fun.
I'll see you in 2 weeks, man. Let's get it.
See you very soon.
Thanks, Polina. Thanks for organizing.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.